So, our conversation last week, I got more replies, more questions about the talk last week than I've ever received since I've been here. And here was the question everybody asked: Did you jump? Did you jump? You know, we all have our personalities and we all have our different ways of being. And one of the things that I have a habit of doing is telling stories and then forgetting to finish them. So it really isn't a ploy at all to have you come back for the rest of the story. However, I thought, well, maybe that is a good idea. And so, for those of you who may not have been here last week, I told a story, and it's a story that I tell when I am encouraging people to be the one to go first, to be the one to go first in consciousness. And the story goes something like this. The quick version is, in my youth, in my adolescence, we used to swim at a swimming quarry, and off in the distance there were these, they looked like cliffs. And there was a myth that you could jump off of those. And so one day, a group of us, led by maybe me, maybe somebody else, we go off into the woods to try to find where this cliff is so that we can perhaps jump into the water. And I said it was very reminiscent of the movie that some of you may recall, Stand By Me. It's a coming-of-age movie. It's one that I remember loving, and quite frankly, I didn't go back and watch it. But it conjures up the feeling of adolescents going on an adventure together, a coming-of-age type story. And as I was thinking of my story and whether or not I jumped or not, and what I would tell you today is, as I tell any story, and as we have our coming-of-age stories, something else I also forget to share with the crowd when I'm telling my stories is that it really isn't about me. The story isn't about me. It's really about you. And I thought I would come here today and ask you, well, did you jump? Did you jump? Did you jump? Are you willing to go first? Are you willing to lead in consciousness? Because, in a way, jumping off a cliff can indeed feel like you're jumping to your death. Can it not? So we come into our spiritual teaching, we say God is all that there is, that God is our source, our supply, the substance upon which we stand, and that God, or God consciousness, is the very activity of our being. Because oftentimes when you say all of those things about God, it's like, yeah, but what are you going to do? Because we are human beings. Human beings that do things in the world of this 3D experience that we're in, right? But God is also the activity. And so we come in and we say all of that, and we might all be nodding together while we're here, but then I don't know about you, but I've gone off in the world, and I pretty much forget. And I view my job as source, my paycheck as source, my bank account as source, my partner, my loves as source. And I forget what I said. And so we're in a teaching that is absolute, meaning we apply it in all areas of our lives. And we get to prove and test whether or not it's true. For me, what I have found is that the only way that I may discern this for myself, prove it for myself, is to jump in, is to jump all in. And it can feel scary, but I'm telling you, the water is just fine. It's deep, It's vast. It receives us. It holds us. It sustains us. And I'm telling that, and I know you already know that. I know that there's an aspect within you that already knows this, so take a breath with me here. Now, not sure how well you can see that, but there's a whole bunch of people standing at a cliff. Some of them have briefcases. Some of them have purses. Some of them are dressed, in their business suits. And this was me about 12 years ago. Had a perfectly good job, could afford the suit, the briefcase, the purse, flying all over the place. When Spirit had already been calling me for quite a while into ministry, and I remember telling my family, I was thinking about it, and they're like, why would you leave a perfectly good job to go into ministry? Will you be okay? Will you be able to support yourself? Anybody have questions like that go on when you consider taking a proverbial leap of faith? Will I be okay? Will I be safe? This isn't the way the conditioning of the world tells me I need to get by and survive. And it feels like you're going to jump off a cliff. Now, one of my favorite stories, I don't have a visual of this one, is when Harrison Ford is in one of his, what were his series? Raiders of the Lost Ark, where in his demonstration of faith as he approaches an abyss, somebody's behind him, of course, right, chasing him, and he has nowhere to go. What does he do? He goes to his knees. I think he picks up some dirt. He might go like this, and he sees as he steps forward that the path meets him, that the path rises up to him, and he can continue on away from those who are chasing him. There is a certain amount of faith and faithfulness when we take our first leaps of faith. But we're building a muscle, my friends, and we are beginning why we journal and we write and we remember and we tell our stories. Instead of telling your stories of woe, I'm inviting you to tell your stories of triumph and faithfulness, and where you did take the leap and the earth and everything came up to support you. Because each and every person has those stories that's sitting here. And the more we tell those stories in our lives, the more we encourage others to go first, to take that leap of faith. You see, because nobody else can do it for you. Eventually, we must go there ourselves. And so I was thinking, hey, this is like a modern day parable, this story. Did you jump? Didn't you jump? I mean, because Jesus would tell parables, right? And people would wonder all week long or all, forever. What did it mean? Did they do it? Etc., right? And so that's really the idea that just like those kids in Stand Alone or Stand By Me, having an adolescence experience, going from their adolescence as a rite of passage into their maturity. I imagine Jesus with his friends called disciples and his loves called Mary and Mary Magdalene and his family and friends were having these type of conversations as well. There's even a picture of him near a cliff with his friends. So sometimes we're called to mature in our spirituality, that all of these things are rites of passage. And that I even view unity as a movement, having a growth spurt right now in consciousness, where, gee, we have requalified the scriptures. We've requalified, in many ways, Christianity and the Christian visuals and stories, and with our metaphysical meaning, have delved into a deeper meaning that is relevant in our lives now. And so then the question becomes, how are we going to mature once we realize, oh my God, there's a force for good, there's this power and presence for good in the universe, and I have learned to use it through my affirmations, through my prayers, only to come and find out that it works so much better when I let it use me. When I surrender, when I allow, when I stop manipulating and controlling and allow spirit to have its way, full sway, self-emptied, spirit-filled. Now, it all sounds really good, doesn't it? You know, and in a way it is simple. It is done as we believe. What are your predominant thought patterns? What are your predominant belief systems? What's your chatter? How does your life outpicture and demonstrate your belief system? Right? Those are the ways. So we change our thinking. We change our beliefs to change our lives. Right? We've heard all that before, right? But for many of us during eras in our lives, even though we may know that, if we're not practicing it every moment of every day, it becomes distant. It becomes a memory of the minister talks about on Sunday, but it's not real in my life. How do we make this real in our lives? We must live it. And so I think of us as these bright, brilliant, beautiful beings of light that forgot to plug ourselves in. All we got to do is plug ourselves in. We're like these lights and we're like complaining. Why am I not illuminated? Why am I not awakened yet? Why is my life not working? Well, God might say, did you plug into me? Did you plug into my consciousness? What happens when we plug it in? The light goes on. It's that simple. It is so simple. It's not always easy. And that's why we have each other. And that's why we do this. And that's why we pray. And that's why we meditate. We're in a thought reversal program where we're reversing our thoughts of the world being our source, and we're turning within. Oh yeah, God's my source, my substance, my supply, my abundance, the activity, the peace, the supply, the fulfillment of every desire. God is. God is. But God is individualized as you. Say, God is individualized as me. Tap your shoulder, place your hand before the heart. God is individualized as me. So when I say that God is my supply, my source, my substance, that it is lavish and rich, it only becomes real to me as I plug into it and identify myself with it as it. It's not to puff ourselves up. It's to be the light and the illumination and the glory of God in expression, uniquely, as you, as me. Take a breath there. God is individualized as each of us. Jesus couldn't do it for us. Jesus said, follow me. There is not one moment in the scriptures or one miracle in which Jesus took credit. All glory to God. All glory to God. Consciousness. The intention wasn't to worship him, but to follow him, that we may do and be the emissaries of this light in this experience. It's as if, as I shared a couple weeks ago, I'm standing in a pool of water right now. I'm not in the shallow end. I'm not in the deep end. The water's right about here. And I'm standing here. And these simple truths are dawning upon my consciousness. And a couple weeks ago, I talked about this idea that the things I want to keep in the shadow, the things I'm afraid of, the things I'm afraid you'll know about me is like a beach ball that I'm submerging under the water, and I'm trying to keep it hitting while I'm putting on a really good show here. And then it like pops up and out and hits somebody. The elephants in the room. And we talked about what are we going to do when the elephants in the room reveal themselves. We're going to go goody, goody, goody. We're going to say yes, yes, yes. Because I get to rise. I get to see in form where I am imagining the absence of God as my source, my supply, my substance, and my activity, my guidance. And I can then plug in and turn that light on and it dissipates. I get the gift of the goody and I get to let go of that which no longer serves. Well, as I'm standing in this water and I'm practicing this, and I'm now going, God is individualized as me. Oh, okay, I'm the channel for love, for peace, for joy. Okay, that means I breathe that in, I plug in. I feel that within my entire being. And I take on being a causal agent for change. Every thought I think, every belief I have, every sentence I utter is like a pebble that as I stand here, I'm dropping the pebble in the pool of awareness and it's having an effect. It ripples out like unto itself. I plop in love, peace, joy. Ripples of love, peace, and joy go out. Oops. One of those little shadows rose up, a little elephant in the room. Oh, I believe in lack. Lack ripples out. I'm the creator of my experience. Always. Yeah, sometimes we want to blame. Always. I'm the creator of my experience. We are all standing in this water, which is the pool of our consciousness, dropping those pebbles in. What pebbles are you dropping in? When we plug into God consciousness, we drop in thoughts of God. What are thoughts of God? They have something to do with love, with peace, with joy, with all supply. We know what thoughts of fear are like. We can choose those too. And they'll ripple out. And then they'll come back to us. We're all in this pool of awareness, plopping in our pebbles. And as we come here, we plug in here, we practice what we teach here in our life ceaselessly. We do begin to extend love, peace, and joy to our neighbors. It has an influence. It's an energetic, we feel it. I mean, if you're like plopping in boulders of love, which people do here, I feel it. I walk into the space, I sense it. I hear the buzz of people hugging and chattering and serving one another. Those are boulders of love that we put into the pool of our consciousness called Unity Renaissance. The trick is that each of us go forth from here and multiply this consciousness in our homes, in our workplaces, in the world. When we butt up against the politics of our world right now, we must know in all of these circumstances, in our finance at a glance, where it seems like there's some lack going on, some lack conscious, in all of those instances, my friends, we are the agents for change. We are causal agents for change. People may have said to Jesus, "Oh my God, you healed me." But I believe in his humbleness. What did he say to the woman who reached out and touched his hem and was healed? Your consciousness healed you. What did he say to the man who was waiting for the healing waters to stir but couldn't get his body in there fast enough? And he's sitting on a mat, and Jesus goes by him. He looks at him and says, "What hinders you?" He didn't say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Come on, let's get you over here." He's saying, what's hindering you? What consciousness is hindering you? Because if I can plug you into whatever that is, to God consciousness, then you now know how to heal yourself. And we don't look for somebody else to heal us. It's that God consciousness that heals, and that those ripples go out. And so as we approach this idea of being good citizens, I entitled this, I have trouble with knowing what I entitled this. Mary, what did I title this? Agency of citizenship. We have agency. This came up in a political conversation I heard, and I thought, I'm going to use that. Agency of citizenship. That we each individually and collectively get to choose how we experience everything. We are the creators of our experience. We're the creators of our life. When we connect in that God consciousness, it flows. We get to choose how we plug in, whether we plug in, what pebbles we're going to drop, and whether or not we're going to jump. So did you jump? Are you willing to go first in your own consciousness and make that choice to jump? As I imagine spiritual community and the invitation that we're giving to be in membership in community, which means to be agents for change. You're not passive. When we're members, we are part of. And we rise and take responsibility for what we experience collectively. The minister can't do it for you. The board, they do a lot, but they can't do it for you either. We all have to come together to say what we are, who we are, how we serve, how we're reimagining, whether our vision and mission works for us, whether our finances are flush or not, and showing that we have a thriving consciousness. We play at being agents for change in this spiritual community at Unity Renaissance. We explore it in our families. We explore it in our businesses. We test it and we prove it there. And how I imagine that the parable that we began with, where we've gone off together to have this adventure, and we're standing there, and then somebody says, when we're right about to go, they go, "No, you first." I have to be willing to go first. But what happens is I'm willing is that hands join mine. And we take the leap together. That's what we're cultivating, not just to do church, not just at Unity Renaissance. This is for the spiritual awakening of each of us in humanity. Take a breath here. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. And so I just invite us to take a breath, to pause as we turn within to meditation, to prayer. Ooh. Here's where we plug in, my friends. Every time this is code for plugging in. Let's pause and take a breath together. Will you pause with me and take a breath? I invite you to allow the mind to become still, the shoulders to drop, the heart space to open, and to consider allowing my words to become the words of the higher self.